It began not as a company, but as a system, a new layer placed over the old grid of the city. Before the controversies and the headlines, there was a simple proposition: tap a button and a car arrives. This idea, born from convenience, grew into a global network. It connected millions of riders with millions of drivers. It did so with unprecedented speed and scale. The company was called Uber. But the phenomenon it represented was something larger. It was a live experiment in logistics, economics, and human behavior, executed in real time on the streets of our world. This system did not ask for permission. It was built on a foundation of existing infrastructure. It utilized public roads, private vehicles, and a vast network of personal smartphones. Yet it operated under its own set of rules. It optimized for efficiency. It scaled through a code of aggressive expansion. The goal was not merely to offer a new taxi service. The ambition was to create a new utility. The core of this story is not about technology. It is about power. Who has the authority to write the rules for our cities? The system began not with a grand vision, but with a simple inconvenience. In Paris, on a cold night in 2008, two entrepreneurs, Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp, could not find a cab. This friction point, a common urban annoyance, became the seed of a business concept. The idea was simple. What if you could request a car with your phone? It was framed as a premium service, a private driver, summoned on demand. This initial concept was called Uber Cab. The timing was critical. The iPhone had been released just 1 year earlier, in 2007. It placed a powerful, location-aware computer into the pockets of millions. This device was the missing piece of hardware. It enabled the core functions of the future network: real-time location tracking, seamless communication, and integrated digital payments. The initial prototype was developed in San Francisco in 2009. It was a closed system, tested among a small group of tech insiders. The magic was in its simplicity. Open the app, see the cars nearby, press a button, and watch your car approach on the map. This focus on seamlessness and reliability was the core offering. It was a direct response to the perceived shortcomings of the incumbent taxi industry. This early stage was not about disruption. It was about opportunity. The founders were strategic actors, not revolutionaries. They identified a gap in the market. UberCab was designed to bypass this regulated scarcity. It would not use licensed taxis. It would use commercially licensed black cars, a different regulatory category. This was the first strategic decision in a long series of regulatory arbitrage maneuvers. The transition from a luxury black car service to a global transportation network was not accidental. It was a direct product of the Silicon Valley culture in which Uber was born. This environment was fueled by venture capital, a specific form of high-risk, high-reward investment. Venture capitalists were not interested in building small, profitable businesses. They were searching for unicorns, companies with the potential for exponential growth and market domination. The goal was to build a two-sided network. More riders attract more drivers. More drivers create a more reliable service. That service attracts more riders. This is a network effect. This pressure for hypergrowth was embedded in Uber's DNA. The capital was not for slow organic growth. It was rocket fuel, intended to finance aggressive expansion. The mission shifted from providing a premium service to fundamentally rewiring urban transportation. The ambition was to replace the very idea of car ownership. The mantra was, move fast and break things. Startups were encouraged to launch first and solve problems later. This included legal and regulatory problems. The prevailing belief was that if a product gained enough popular support, it would create its own legitimacy. Public demand would force regulators to adapt. The company developed an internal launch playbook. This was a step-by-step guide for entering a new city. A small, elite team of launchers would descend on a target city. Their objective was singular: to establish Uber's presence and ignite the network effect as quickly as possible. They would launch a marketing campaign to attract riders, typically offering free initial rides, while simultaneously recruiting a supply of drivers with significant financial incentives. When regulators issued cease and desist orders, the founders did not retreat. They simply changed the name. They dropped cab and became Uber. They argued that they were not a transportation company at all. They were a technology company that connected willing drivers with willing riders. The strategy was to create facts on the ground. By the time local authorities recognized the scale of the operation, Uber would already have a significant base of drivers and riders. These users would become a powerful political constituency, a vocal lobby that could be mobilized against any regulatory action. The company used its app to rally support. The rapid growth was engineered. Armed with billions in venture capital, Uber intentionally operated at a significant loss, using the capital to artificially lower the price of rides. To evade authorities, the company developed a technological countermeasure, a secret internal tool codenamed Greyball, a system designed to deceive and evade officials. Aggressive tactics were used to simulate demand and undermine competitors, such as requesting and canceling rides from rivals to clog their networks and waste drivers' time. The conflict was inevitable. Uber's strategy of launching first and dealing with regulations later guaranteed a confrontation with authorities. The first weapons deployed were cease and desist orders, fines, and vehicle impoundments. These actions were largely ineffective. Taxi drivers, threatened by subsidized competition, began to organize. They took to the streets in protest. For governments, these protests created immense political pressure. They were caught between two forces: a powerful taxi industry and a rapidly growing segment of the public reliant on the service. The battle against Uber was a global war fought on dozens of fronts simultaneously. In South Korea, authorities went further, indicting Travis Kalanick and other executives for violating local transportation laws. Uber's response was to adapt. The company became a powerful lobbying force, hiring former government officials and well-connected political operatives in each market. The conflict revealed a deep asymmetry. A local government was fighting a single battle. Uber, a global entity, was fighting many battles at once. It could afford to lose in one city as long as it was winning elsewhere. Outright confrontation proved to be unsustainable. The conflict slowly shifted from open warfare to a state of uneasy truce. City governments started to develop new regulatory frameworks specifically designed for transportation network companies, or TNCs. This was a quiet but significant victory for Uber. These new regulations varied widely but often included background checks, commercial insurance requirements, and fees per ride. The era of unchecked growth was over. The disruptor was, in a sense, being domesticated by the very systems it had sought to bypass. The war was over, but the struggle for control of the city had just entered a new, more complex phase. To understand Uber's external actions, one must first look inside the company. The internal culture was a direct reflection of its leadership. This leadership style was codified in the company's stated values. They were explicit permissions for employees to be aggressive, to challenge norms, and to prioritize results above all else. This centralized authority allowed for incredible speed and decisiveness. A decision to launch in a new country or to fight a new regulation could be made in hours, not weeks. The culture and the strategy became inseparable. The same internal mindset that encouraged toe-stepping among colleagues was the one that justified launching in a city without permission. The values that were intended to foster innovation also created a toxic work environment. Allegations of harassment, discrimination, and a boys' club atmosphere became widespread. The most prominent of these was a 2017 blog post by Susan Fowler, which detailed a pattern of systemic sexual harassment and an HR department that protected high-performing employees. Fowler's account was a catalyst. It opened the floodgates for more stories and triggered an internal crisis. The crisis culminated in the departure of Travis Kalanick. Under immense pressure from investors, the founder was forced to resign in June 2017. Despite the leadership changes, one core element remained constant: its centralized, data-driven brain. The company's operations are managed by a powerful algorithmic system. For drivers, the app is their boss. It tells them where to go, when to work, and how they are performing. Failure to maintain a high rating can lead to deactivation, the algorithmic equivalent of being fired. The individual driver has little to no ability to negotiate with the system. The new CEO, Dara Khosrowshahi, was brought in to change the company's culture. He softened the company's tone and projected a more responsible public image. However, the underlying operating system, the centralized brain, remained intact. The system had simply been given a new, more diplomatic interface. The disruption promised by Uber was framed as a story of empowerment. It offered a new form of work, one that was flexible and accessible. However, the structure of this work was built upon a critical legal classification: the driver as an independent contractor. This decision systematically transferred risk from the corporation to the individual. As contractors, drivers were responsible for all their own expenses. They received no employer-sponsored health benefits, no retirement contributions, and no paid time off. The promised flexibility came at the price of stability. The question of whether drivers were truly independent business owners or simply employees with fewer rights became the subject of intense legal and political battles around the world. The impact of Uber's system extended far beyond the drivers. The most visible effect was on traffic. Numerous studies began to show that Uber increased congestion. As more riders opted for the convenience of an app, ridership on buses and subways began to decline, leading to lower revenue and service cuts for public transit agencies. The legacy taxi industry was the most immediate casualty. Faced with a subsidized competitor, traditional taxi businesses could not compete. Medallion prices, once a stable asset, plummeted in value. This collapse wiped out the life savings of thousands of driver owners. The system designed to supplement urban transport was now actively competing with and undermining the foundational public networks. The true cost was a reallocation of space, resources, and risk. The story of Uber is more than the chronicle of a single company. It is a defining case study of the 21st century. It presents a cold autopsy of disruption, power, and consequence. The examination of Uber's methods reveals a repeatable playbook for inserting a new system into an old one. It leverages capital as a weapon and technology to evade enforcement. This autopsy offers no final judgment. The benefits of convenience and accessibility for riders are real, but the costs are also real. Ultimately, we are left where we began, with a calm but heavy question. Technology continues to accelerate, moving faster than the social and legal frameworks designed to govern it. When a new power emerges, one that can rewrite the rules of our physical world with software, who is ultimately in control? Who arbitrates the unseen costs? Who decides what the future of our shared spaces will be? The story is not over. The experiment continues.